The crystal halls of Nexus Prime stretched higher than any building on Earth, their walls glowing with soft blue light that came from inside the alien materials. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of his ship and looked down at the massive space station where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made their decisions. He had been waiting for 3 hours to receive new orders, but something felt different today. The usual busy traffic of alien ships moving around the station had slowed to almost nothing. Amy Carter walked up beside him, her tactical uniform neat and clean as always. She carried a datapad in her hands, and her face showed worry. "Captain, we just got the emergency signal from the Galactic Council. They want all ship commanders to receive immediate orders." Morrison nodded and followed her to the command center of the ESS Liberty, humanity's biggest and most advanced warship. The main screen flickered to life, showing the familiar insect-like face of Ambassador Crixth from the Zephyrian race. His large compound eyes reflected the emergency lights of the council chamber behind him. "Attention all Federation vessels. We have received confirmation that the Void Swarm has broken through our outer defensive lines. All species classified as developing civilizations must immediately retreat to their home systems and await further instructions." Morrison felt his stomach drop. The Void Swarm was something that even the oldest races in the galaxy feared. They were not just another enemy that could be fought with normal weapons. According to the reports he had read, they consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space where planets and stars used to exist. The Federation had been fighting them for months at the edge of known space, but Morrison had hoped the advanced alien races could handle the threat. Lieutenant Ben Taylor, the ship's chief engineer, looked up from his console. "Captain, they're sending specific retreat coordinates. We're supposed to go back to the Sol system and set up defensive positions around Earth." His voice carried doubt. Morrison knew what Taylor was thinking. If the Void Swarm could defeat races that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, what chance did humanity have with their ships that were barely 50 years old? Dr. Kevin Walsh entered the command center, carrying a thick folder of data sheets. As Earth's top scientist working with the Federation, he had access to information that most humans never saw. "Captain, I've been studying the attack reports from the front lines. The situation is much worse than they're telling us. The Ethereals lost their entire Third Fleet yesterday. These creatures don't just destroy ships, they make them disappear completely." Amy Carter brought up the tactical display, showing the current positions of all Federation forces. Red markers indicated where Void Swarm attacks had been confirmed. The pattern was spreading toward the center of the galaxy like a disease. "Sir, at their current speed, they'll reach the core worlds in less than 2 months. The Council is moving all non-essential personnel to protected systems." Morrison studied the display and felt anger growing inside him. Non-essential? Is that what they think of us? He had spent years proving that humans could contribute to the galactic community. Human ships might be made of metal and ceramic instead of exotic materials, and human weapons might use simple fusion reactions instead of dimensional manipulation, but they had always done their job well. Ben Taylor pulled up the technical specifications of their own ship. "Captain, our fusion drives are reliable, but they're slow compared to what the other races use. If we retreat to Earth now, we'll be sitting there waiting while the galaxy burns around us." Morrison could hear the frustration in the engineer's voice. Nobody wanted to run away from a fight, especially when billions of lives were at stake. Dr. Walsh spread his data sheets across the table and pointed to several charts. "I've been analyzing the energy signatures from Void Swarm attacks. There's something strange about how they target their victims. They seem to focus on ships and facilities with the highest energy outputs first. The more advanced the technology, the faster it gets consumed." Amy Carter leaned over to look at the charts. "What does that mean for us?" she asked. Walsh looked thoughtful as he arranged the papers. "I'm not sure yet, but our technology might be different enough that they don't recognize it as a priority target. Most Federation ships use exotic matter and dimensional energy. We still use physical matter and electromagnetic systems." The communication system activated again, and this time Admiral Peter Collins appeared on the screen. He was calling from Earth, where the human high command was meeting to discuss their response to the evacuation order. All Earth vessels, you are ordered to return to Sol system immediately. We're implementing full defensive measures around our colonies. Morrison looked around at his crew. These people had volunteered to serve on the edge of known space, far from Earth and their families. They had joined the Federation because they believed humanity had something valuable to offer the galaxy. Now they were being told to hide while others fought and died. Commander Lisa Brooks spoke from the communication station. Captain, I'm receiving retreat confirmations from most of the human fleet, but some ships are requesting permission to remain and provide assistance to Federation forces. Morrison was not surprised. Human nature had always included a stubborn refusal to abandon others in need. Dr. Walsh continued studying his data while the others talked. Captain, I think I need to investigate something. These attack patterns don't make sense if the Void Swarm is just randomly destroying everything they encounter. There might be a reason why our technology doesn't interest them as much. Morrison made his decision. Ben, how long would it take us to reach the outer system where the attacks have been happening? The engineer checked his calculations. About 6 hours at maximum speed, sir. But those are direct orders from both the Federation and Earth Command. Sometimes orders need to be questioned, Morrison said quietly. Amy, set course for the Kepler Research Station. If Dr. Walsh is right about our technology being different, we need to know why. And if there are Federation ships out there that need help, we're not going to abandon them. The crew worked quickly to prepare for the journey. Morrison knew he was risking his career and possibly his ship, but something deep inside told him that running away was not the answer. As the ESS, Liberty, changed course toward the danger zone, Amy Carter noticed something unusual on her sensors. Captain, I'm picking up strange readings ahead. It's almost like space itself is bending around something massive. Morrison stared out at the stars and wondered what they would find when they reached their destination. The Void Swarm had defeated every force sent against them, but maybe humanity's different approach could make a difference. Maybe being primitive and stubborn would turn out to be exactly what the galaxy needed. The ESS Liberty dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler Station, and what Jake Morrison saw made his blood run cold. The massive research station was still there, its metal hull scarred and blackened but somehow intact. Around it floated the remains of what had once been beautiful ships belonging to the Luminari, an ancient race that built their vessels from pure crystallized energy. Now those ships were nothing more than fading particles of light, drifting through space like cosmic dust. Amy Carter worked frantically at her sensor station, trying to make sense of the readings. Captain, I'm detecting life signs aboard Kepler Station. 43 humans are still alive in there. She paused and looked up with confusion on her face. Sir, the station's hull shows damage consistent with Void Swarm attacks, but the internal systems are still functioning. That shouldn't be possible. Ben Taylor studied the engineering readouts from the station. Captain, their fusion reactors are running at full power, and their defensive systems are still online. According to these readings, they fought off a Void attack 3 days ago. Morrison felt a spark of hope. If a human research station could survive when advanced alien warships could not, maybe Dr. Walsh was right about their technology being different. Morrison assembled a boarding party to investigate the station. Ben Taylor led the engineering team while Dr. Walsh brought his scientific equipment. As their shuttle approached the station's docking bay, they could see the strange marks left by void creatures. The metal hull was twisted and bent in places, but it had not dissolved like the alien ships around them. Commander Rachel Davis met them at the airlock, her face tired but determined. She had been in charge of Kepler Station for 2 years, overseeing research into long-range communications and deep space sensors. Captain Morrison, I never thought I'd be so happy to see another human face. We've been alone out here since the attack. They gathered in the station's main conference room, where Davis explained what had happened. The Void Swarm came out of nowhere 3 days ago. We detected their approach about 10 minutes before they hit us. The Luminary fleet tried to protect us, but their ship started dissolving the moment the creatures got close. She activated a holographic display showing the battle. Watch this carefully, Davis continued. The Void creatures tried to attack our station the same way they hit the Luminary ships, but something went wrong. They kept phasing in and out of our reality, like they couldn't get a solid grip on us. The hologram showed dark, writhing shapes that seemed to struggle to maintain their form near the human station. Dr. Walsh studied the sensor logs with growing excitement. "Commander, your point defense systems actually hit them. Look at these energy readings. When your plasma cannons fired, the void creatures recoiled." Davis nodded grimly. "Our weapons seem to cause them real pain. I've never seen anything like it." Meanwhile, Amy Carter detected new contacts approaching their position. "Captain, we have multiple ships coming in fast. Federation signatures, but they're moving like they're running from something." Morrison ordered everyone back to the Liberty immediately. Whatever was chasing the Federation ships would be there soon. Admiral Helena Torres commanded the approaching fleet from her crystalline ethereal flagship. Morrison had worked with Torres before and respected her tactical skills, but her ship was unlike anything humans built. It was grown rather than constructed, made from living crystal that could reshape itself during battle. Torres was shocked to find humans still in the danger zone. "Captain Morrison, you must evacuate immediately," Torres transmitted. "A void hive mind is pursuing our fleet. These creatures are unlike the smaller entities we've encountered. This one is the size of a small moon and far more intelligent." Morrison could hear fear in the alien admiral's voice, something he had never experienced before. The hive mind arrived like a nightmare made real. It emerged from hyperspace as a massive sphere of writhing darkness that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around itself. Stars dimmed as it passed, and the Federation ships began losing power immediately. Torres's beautiful crystalline vessel started to crack and dissolve as the creature fed on its exotic energy matrix. Morrison watched in horror as the most advanced ships in the galaxy became helpless against this impossible enemy. "Captain, Admiral Torres is requesting emergency evacuation to our ship," Amy Carter reported. "Her vessel is breaking apart." Morrison didn't hesitate. "Tell her we're coming alongside. Ben, prepare for emergency docking." The process of transferring Torres and her surviving crew to the Liberty was dangerous and chaotic. The hive mind seemed confused by the human ship, its attacks less focused than they had been against the alien vessels. Dr. Walsh monitored the creature's behavior from the science station. "Captain, it's trying to drain our power systems, but our fusion reactors are resisting somehow." Lieutenant Gary Foster had been quiet at the weapons station, but now he spoke up. "Captain, request permission to open fire." Morrison stared at him. Their weapons were primitive compared to what the Federation ships carried, but those advanced weapons had proven useless against the void creatures. "Do it, Gary. All weapons full spread." The Liberty's plasma cannons and kinetic projectiles streaked toward the hive mind. Morrison expected their attack to be absorbed harmlessly, but instead something incredible happened. Where their weapons struck, the creature's form destabilized and writhed in apparent agony. The massive entity actually pulled back from their position. Torres, now standing on the Liberty's bridge, watched in amazement as human weapons accomplished what her entire fleet could not. "How is this possible?" she whispered. Morrison was wondering the same thing, but there would be time for explanations later. "Gary, keep firing. Amy, plot a course away from here. We need to report this to command." The battle continued for several more minutes, with the Liberty and the remaining human ships from Kepler Station maintaining steady fire on the hive mind. The creature seemed to realize that these opponents were different from its previous victims. Instead of pressing the attack, it began to withdraw, phasing back into whatever dimension it had come from. As the immediate danger passed, Torres gathered her surviving officers on the Liberty's bridge. She was the first alien admiral to ever set foot on a human warship, but the circumstances made normal protocol seem unimportant. "Captain Morrison, your species has just accomplished something that our best military theorists said was impossible. You drove off a void hive mind." Dr. Walsh was analyzing the sensor data from the battle when he made a crucial discovery. "Captain, I think I understand what's happening. The void creatures exist partially outside normal spacetime. They feed on dimensional energy and exotic matter. But our technology operates entirely within normal physics using conventional electromagnetic and nuclear forces. Morrison began to understand the implications. You're saying they can't properly digest our technology? Walsh nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. It's like trying to eat something that exists in a different reality. They can interact with us, but they can't consume us efficiently. And our weapons, being based on conventional physics, can actually hurt them when they try to manifest in our dimension. Torres listened to this explanation with growing wonder. Your primitive technology is actually an advantage against the most advanced threat the galaxy has ever faced. Morrison almost smiled at the irony. Humanity had always been told their ships and weapons were outdated and inefficient compared to alien technology. Now those same limitations might be the key to saving everyone. Amy Carter interrupted their discussion with an urgent report. Captain, I'm receiving communications from across the galaxy. Word of our victory is spreading through the Federation networks. The Galactic Council is requesting immediate consultation with human military leaders. Morrison knew that everything had just changed. Humanity was no longer the junior partner in galactic affairs. As the Liberty prepared to return to Federation space, Morrison looked out at the stars and realized that this was only the beginning. If humans could fight the Void Swarm effectively, they would need to share that knowledge with their alien allies. The galaxy was counting on them now, and Morrison was determined not to let anyone down. News of humanity's unexpected victory against the Void Hive Mind spread through the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting the impossible story of primitive human weapons succeeding where the most advanced technology had failed. Jake Morrison found himself thrust into a spotlight he never wanted, but the galaxy demanded answers. The summons to Nexus Prime came directly from the Galactic Council itself. Morrison had never addressed the full assembly before, and the thought of standing before representatives of 47 different civilizations made him nervous. Amy Carter would accompany him as his tactical advisor, while the Liberty remained under Ben Taylor's command in case of emergency. The council chamber was vast beyond human comprehension, its crystalline walls rising into darkness above. Each species had their own section designed for their specific environmental needs. The ethereals floated in chambers filled with pure energy, while the aquatic delphinians remained in massive water-filled spheres. Morrison and Carter stood on a small platform in the center, feeling very small and very human. The ethereal prime consciousness spoke first, its voice echoing directly in Morrison's mind rather than through his ears. Captain Morrison of the human species, explain to this assembly how your primitive weapons succeeded against the Void Swarm when our most advanced forces failed. The question carried no insult, only desperate curiosity. Morrison took a deep breath and decided to be completely honest. Honored consciousness, we don't fully understand it ourselves. Our weapons and technology are based on simple physics that have been used for thousands of years. We shoot projectiles using chemical reactions and plasma using magnetic fields. According to our scientists, this makes us difficult for the void creatures to consume. General Crix of the Zephyrian military leaned forward on his 6 legs, his compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights. Your explanation suggests that technological advancement has made us vulnerable to this threat. How do you propose we modify our existing fleets to incorporate human methods? Morrison looked to Carter, who activated a portable holographic display. General, we've prepared some preliminary modifications that might help, Carter began. The key is reducing dependence on dimensional energy and exotic matter, replace energy-based propulsion with conventional thrusters, add physical armor plating instead of energy shields, and install kinetic weapons alongside energy systems. Dr. Walsh, who had been granted special permission to address the council, presented his research findings. Esteemed representatives, the Void Swarm feeds specifically on dimensional energy signatures. The more exotic your technology, the more attractive you become as targets. Human technology operates in conventional space-time, using electromagnetic and nuclear forces that exist in a different frequency range. While Morrison dealt with galactic politics, Admiral Peter Collins was implementing emergency measures throughout human space. Operation Longshot had begun immediately after receiving Morrison's battle reports. Every available shipyard was working to retrofit Federation vessels with human-style weapons and defensive systems. Commander Lisa Brooks found herself in charge of the most unusual engineering project in galactic history. Teams of human technicians worked alongside alien engineers to strip exotic systems from Federation ships and replace them with conventional technology. The work was challenging because most alien races had forgotten how to build simple mechanical systems. The first major test of the new hybrid technology came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected a massive void incursion heading toward the Proxima colony, one of humanity's oldest settlements outside the Sol system. The colony housed over 2 million people and served as a major trading post for several alien species. Commander Rachel Davis, promoted after her heroic defense of Kepler Station, led the combined defense fleet. Her command included 20 human ships, 15 retrofitted Zephyrian fighters, and 5 ethereal vessels equipped with experimental armor plating. It was the largest mixed technology fleet ever assembled. The Void Force approaching Proxima was unlike anything seen before. Instead of the chaotic swarm tactics they had used previously, the creatures moved in organized formations like a traditional military force. Dr. Walsh, monitoring from Earth, realized that the enemy was learning and adapting to human resistance. Lieutenant Gary Foster, now serving as weapons coordinator for the defense fleet, studied the approaching enemy formations. Commander Davis, they're moving differently this time. The smaller entities are protecting the larger ones, and they're maintaining formation even when we fire on them. Davis felt a chill of worry. An enemy that could learn was far more dangerous than mindless destroyers. The battle for Proxima began when the Void forces reached the outer sensor grid. The hybrid Federation ships performed better than anyone had hoped. Zephyrian fighters using conventional engines proved more maneuverable than their energy-based predecessors, while ethereal vessels with human armor could actually survive direct hits from Void weapons. Communications officer Tina Wells made a crucial discovery during the battle. While monitoring radio frequencies, she noticed that the Void creatures reacted strangely to certain human transmissions. Commander, they seem to be disturbed by our communication signals. When I broadcast on multiple frequencies simultaneously, the smaller entities lose coordination. Davis immediately ordered all ships to begin broadcasting loud, chaotic signals on every available frequency. The effect was dramatic. Void formations began to break apart as individual creatures lost contact with their command structure. Human, rock music, emergency broadcasts, and even random static seemed to cause the aliens physical discomfort. The tide of battle turned when Davis ordered a focused assault on the largest Void entity commanding the invasion force. Human kinetic weapons punched through its defenses while conventional explosives disrupted its control over smaller creatures. For the second time in galactic history, human tactics had defeated a major Void incursion. But victory came with sobering intelligence. Captured Void fragments analyzed by Dr. Walsh revealed that the creatures were rapidly developing countermeasures to human technology. Admiral Collins, we have perhaps 2 months before they adapt completely. The swarm is learning to recognize and target our conventional systems. Morrison returned from Nexus Prime with authorization to implement the most ambitious military project in Federation history. The Council had agreed to restructure their entire defense strategy around human principles, but time was running short. Intelligence reports suggested the Void swarm was massing for a final assault on the galaxy's core worlds. Admiral Helena Torres, whose life had been saved by human intervention, volunteered to serve as liaison between Federation Command and human forces. Working from the Liberty, she helped coordinate the massive retrofitting program that would either save the galaxy or represent its final desperate gamble. Ben Taylor led teams of engineers to the Federation's primary shipyards, where they worked around the clock to convert exotic alien vessels into hybrid fighting machines. The process was like performing surgery on living entities, since many alien ships were grown rather than built. Each conversion was unique and required creative solutions to complex technical problems. As the retrofit program continued, Dr. Walsh made a disturbing discovery while studying long-range sensor data. The Void Swarm had stopped their advance and were gathering in massive numbers at the edge of the galaxy. "They're not attacking randomly anymore," he reported to Morrison. "They're planning something big, and I think they're waiting for us to exhaust our resources on these defensive measures." Amy Carter, now commanding her own ship, the ESS Defiance, led deep reconnaissance missions to monitor Void activities. What she found confirmed everyone's worst fears. The enemy was building structures in empty space, vast geometric shapes that seemed to focus and amplify their dimensional manipulation abilities. Morrison studied the reconnaissance reports and realized that conventional defensive strategies would not be enough. The Void Swarm was preparing for a coordinated assault that would overwhelm any static defense, no matter how well prepared. "We can't just wait for them to come to us," told the assembled command staff. "If we're going to save the galaxy, we need to take the fight to them." The proposal was so dangerous that even hardened military officers called it suicide. But with time running out and the enemy growing stronger, desperate measures were the only option left. Morrison began planning Operation Hardpoint, a direct assault on the Void Swarm's home dimension using human technology as the key to victory. Admiral Peter Collins stood before the largest gathering of military leaders in galactic history as he outlined Operation Hardpoint. The plan was so audacious that several alien representatives openly questioned human sanity. The strategy required taking the war directly to the Void Swarm's home dimension, using human ships as bridgeheads into a realm where normal physics might not apply. Dr. Kevin Walsh had spent weeks analyzing captured Void technology and made a breakthrough that changed everything. The creatures did not actually destroy the matter they consumed. Instead, they transported it to their own dimensional space where it existed in a kind of suspended state. Every destroyed planet, every consumed ship, still existed somewhere in void space. "If we can reach their dimension and establish a foothold," Walsh explained to the assembled commanders, "we might be able to reverse the consumption process and restore everything they've taken." The implications were staggering. Billions of lives and entire civilizations could be saved if the plan succeeded. Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, volunteered to lead the expedition personally. The mission required modifying human ships with experimental dimensional drives, reverse-engineered from Federation technology, but keeping all weapons and life support systems completely conventional. It was a combination that had never been attempted before. Amy Carter, commanding the ESS Defiance, would lead the advanced scout wing through the dimensional barrier. Her ship had been specially modified with enhanced sensors and communication equipment that theoretically would function in both normal space and the alien dimension. The uncertainty of the word theoretically bothered everyone involved. Chief Engineer Ben Taylor worked with teams of alien specialists to create stable dimensional portals powered by human nuclear reactors. The concept violated several fundamental principles of physics as understood by Federation science, but human willingness to ignore impossible limitations had already proven useful against the Void Swarm. The preparation phase was frantic and desperate. Every human colony was evacuated to the outer rim of the galaxy in case Operation Hardpoint failed completely. Civilian transports carried millions of refugees away from Earth, while every available warship joined Morrison's fleet. Humanity was risking everything on a single desperate gamble. Commander Lisa Brooks coordinated the largest evacuation in human history, while simultaneously managing the final preparations for the assault fleet. The logistics were staggering. Food, ammunition, spare parts, and medical supplies had to be calculated for an expedition into unknown territory where resupply would be impossible. The launching point for Operation Hardpoint was the Veil Nebula, where long-range sensors had detected the largest concentration of void entities ever recorded. The enemy seemed to be drawing power from the nebula's exotic matter to fuel their dimensional manipulation abilities. It was the perfect target for a decisive strike. Morrison's fleet assembled at the nebula's edge, a collection of human ships that looked primitive compared to the sleek Federation vessels they had once escorted. But these simple metal hulls and conventional engines had already proven their worth against impossible odds. Now, they would face the ultimate test. Dr. Walsh, monitored dimensional readings as the fleet approached the barrier between realities. The boundary was invisible to normal sensors but showed up clearly on human instruments as a region where space itself seemed to twist and bend. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations ahead. The void entities are pouring out to meet us. The first wave of void creatures emerged from their dimension like nightmares given form, but Morrison's fleet was ready for them. Conventional weapons blazed as human ships proved once again that simple solutions could defeat complex problems. The void entities fell back, unable to adapt quickly enough to human tactics. Amy Carter led the first ships through the dimensional rift, her conventional sensors somehow still functioning in the alien space beyond. What she found defied every expectation and scientific theory. The void dimension was not the empty wasteland they had imagined. Instead, it was filled with the consumed worlds and civilizations that everyone had thought were lost forever. Admiral Morrison, you need to see this, Carter transmitted from beyond the barrier. The destroyed planets are here, intact, but changed. The surfaces are covered with some kind of organic structures that look like breeding pools. Morrison felt his blood run cold. The void swarm was not just destroying civilizations. They were using them as nurseries for new generations of creatures. The battle in void space was unlike anything previously experienced by human forces. Gravity shifted randomly, time seemed to flow at different rates in various regions, and the very air was filled with smaller void entities that attacked anything that moved. But human adaptability proved its worth once again, as ground teams established defensive positions on the consumed worlds. Lieutenant Gary Foster led assault teams to secure landing zones on a planet that had once been the ethereal homeworld. The crystalline cities were still intact but overgrown with organic void structures that pulsed with alien life. Foster's teams used conventional explosives to clear the breeding pools while establishing communication relays back to the fleet. The climax of Operation Hardpoint came when Morrison's flagship encountered the Void Overmind, the massive intelligence that controlled the entire swarm. The creature was beyond imagination, a living entity the size of a small moon that existed partially, in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its very presence warped reality around it. Morrison realized that conventional weapons would not be enough to defeat something of this magnitude. In a desperate decision, he ordered his ship to ram directly into the Overmind, while Dr. Walsh prepared the most dangerous weapon in human history. The experimental device was a conventional nuclear warhead modified to disrupt dimensional barriers. The approach to the Overmind was terrifying. The creature's influence caused systems throughout the ship to malfunction in impossible ways. Gravity reversed itself in some sections while time moved backwards in others. Several crew members aged decades in seconds while others became younger. Reality itself was breaking down around them. Ben Taylor kept the ship's engines running through sheer determination and engineering skill. Admiral, hull integrity is failing and our dimensional anchor is destabilizing. If we don't detonate that weapon soon, we'll be scattered across multiple realities. Morrison could hear the strain in the engineer's voice as he fought to hold their ship together. Dr. Walsh worked frantically to calibrate the nuclear device for maximum dimensional disruption. The weapon had never been tested, and the theoretical calculations suggested it might tear holes between all known dimensions. Admiral, if this works, it could save the galaxy. If it fails, we might destroy everything instead. Amy Carter's voice came through the communication system as her ship moved to provide cover for Morrison's desperate assault. Admiral, void reinforcements are moving to protect the Overmind. We're holding them off, but you need to finish this quickly. Her ship was taking heavy damage as it fought to keep the approach corridor clear. The moment of impact came with devastating force. Morrison's ship struck the Overmind at full speed while Dr. Walsh detonated the dimensional disruptor. The explosion was unlike anything ever witnessed, a blast that seemed to occur in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Space itself cracked like broken glass around the epicenter. Morrison survived the collision by pure luck, rescued by Carter's ship as his vessel broke apart around him. The nuclear explosion in void space created a cascade reaction that began tearing holes between dimensions. Consumed worlds started phasing back into normal space, while the Overmind writhed in apparent agony. The dimensional disruption spread outward from the explosion point like ripples in a pond. Void creatures throughout the alien dimension began losing cohesion as their connection to the overmind weakened. Many of the smaller entities simply dissolved, while others fled deeper into their home dimension to escape the chaos. As the immediate effects of the explosion stabilized, Morrison watched in amazement as 17 Federation worlds materialized in normal space. Their surfaces were scarred and changed by their time in void dimension, but they were intact and could potentially be reclaimed by their original inhabitants. The void overmind, wounded and confused by the dimensional disruption, began a strategic withdrawal deeper into its home realm. The massive creature pulled the surviving swarm entities with it, apparently unable to maintain large-scale incursions into normal space while dealing with the continuing effects of the dimensional damage. Morrison stood on the bridge of Carter's ship and looked out at the restored worlds floating in space around them. The victory had cost humanity nearly half its fleet and thousands of brave personnel. But for the first time since the crisis began, the galaxy had hope that the Void Swarm could be defeated permanently. The aftermath of Operation Hardpoint transformed the galaxy in ways that nobody had anticipated. Jake Morrison stood in the medical bay of Amy Carter's ship, his injuries healing slowly, but his spirit stronger than ever. The nuclear explosion in void space had created permanent rifts between dimensions, and 17 Federation worlds had been restored to normal space after months of being considered lost forever. Dr. Kevin Walsh worked frantically to understand the long-term effects of the dimensional disruption. The rifts were stable, but required constant monitoring to prevent new incursions. More importantly, his analysis of recovered void technology revealed that the creatures were not originally from another dimension. They had once been a normal species that had evolved beyond physical existence, only to become trapped in their own advanced technology. Admiral Peter Collins arrived at the battle site 3 days after the explosion, leading a massive fleet of rescue and recovery ships. The sight that greeted him was unprecedented in galactic history. Human vessels, battered but victorious, were coordinating the evacuation of billions of survivors from the restored worlds. Entire civilizations thought lost forever were suddenly asking for help to rebuild their shattered societies. Amy Carter had taken temporary command of the human forces, while Morrison recovered from his injuries. Her ship, the ESS Defiance, had become the unofficial headquarters for the largest humanitarian operation in galactic history. Federation relief ships arrived daily, bringing supplies and personnel to help with the massive task of restoring 17 worlds to habitability. The political ramifications were enormous and immediate. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to restructure their entire military doctrine around human principles and tactics. Admiral Helena Torres, whose life had been saved by human intervention during the first Void encounter, was appointed as the new Supreme Commander of Federation forces, working directly with Admiral Collins to implement the new strategies. Commander Lisa Brooks found herself in charge of establishing the Institute for Dimensional Studies on Earth, where the galaxy's most brilliant scientists would work together to study void technology and develop defenses against future extra-dimensional threats. Her first task was analyzing the stable rifts left by the nuclear explosion to determine if they could be sealed permanently. The discovery that consumed worlds could be restored had profound implications for galactic civilization. Dozens of species that had been declared extinct were suddenly alive again, though changed by their experience in void space. The rescued populations brought with them knowledge of the alien dimension that would prove invaluable for future defense planning. Dr. Walsh established research stations near the dimensional rifts to monitor void activity in their home realm. The creatures had retreated deep into their dimension, apparently unable to mount large-scale attacks while dealing with the continuing effects of the dimensional damage. But they were still there, and Walsh knew they would eventually adapt and return. Ben Taylor led engineering teams to study the hybrid technology that had proven so effective against the Void Swarm. Federation shipyards began producing new classes of vessels that combined the best of alien innovation with human practical engineering. The result was a new generation of ships that were both advanced and resistant to dimensional manipulation. The most significant change was philosophical rather than technological. The galaxy had learned that advancement did not always mean superiority, and that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective. Human concepts like stubborn determination, adaptability, and willingness to attempt impossible tasks became core principles of Federation military doctrine. Morrison, fully recovered from his injuries, was appointed as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. His new position carried unprecedented authority, reflecting humanity's new status as the species that had saved galactic civilization. But he insisted on maintaining his military rank and continuing to serve on active duty whenever possible. Amy Carter received command of the new Federation Defense Force, a military organization that combined human tactical thinking with alien technological capabilities. Her first mission was establishing early warning stations along the dimensional rifts where future incursions might occur. The network would provide advance notice of any void activity and coordinate rapid response to new threats. Lieutenant Gary Foster, promoted to commander, took charge of training Federation personnel in human-style combat tactics. His students included representatives from 47 different species, each learning how to fight using conventional weapons and straightforward strategies. The classes were popular because they worked, even if they seemed primitive to advanced. Alien Minds Communications Officer Tina Wells became the galaxy's leading expert on using electromagnetic signals to disrupt void creatures. Her research into the effects of human radio transmissions on extra-dimensional entities led to the development of specialized weapons that could disorient and confuse void forces. Rock music had literally become a weapon of war. The rescued civilizations began the long process of rebuilding their societies with human assistance. The Ethereals, once the most advanced species in the galaxy, found themselves learning basic engineering principles from human instructors. Their beautiful crystal cities had to be rebuilt using conventional materials that could resist dimensional manipulation. Commander Rachel Davis established the Outer Rim Defense Command, a network of stations designed to detect and respond to threats from beyond known space. Her experience defending Kepler Station made her the obvious choice to lead humanity's efforts to protect the galaxy's frontier regions. The stations used hybrid technology that could function effectively against both conventional and extra-dimensional enemies. Dr. Walsh made a disturbing discovery while analyzing long-range sensor data from the dimensional rifts. The void creatures were not the only extra-dimensional threat facing the galaxy. His instruments detected other entities moving in the spaces between realities, some of which seemed even more dangerous than the swarm. The victory against the void was just the beginning of a larger struggle. 5 years after Operation Hardpoint, Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime's new defense station. The facility was a marvel of hybrid engineering that represented everything the galaxy had learned from the Void War. Human-designed armor plating protected ethereal computational cores, while Zephyrian sensors were powered by conventional fusion reactors. The defense station monitored the dimensional rifts constantly, watching for signs of renewed void activity or new threats from other dimensions. The early warning systems had already detected and prevented 3 minor incursions, proving that the galaxy's new defensive strategy was effective. But Morrison knew that larger challenges were coming. A young Federation officer approached Morrison with a question that had become common among the new generation of military personnel. Lieutenant Clicktar was a Zephyrian who had fought alongside humans during the final battles against the Void Swarm. His compound eyes reflected genuine curiosity as he spoke. "Admiral Morrison, how did your species know that primitive technology would work against the swarm when our most advanced weapons failed?" The question was asked with respect rather than condescension. The young officer genuinely wanted to understand human thinking. Morrison smiled, remembering the desperate uncertainty of those first encounters with the void creatures. "We didn't know, Lieutenant. We were just as surprised as everyone else when our weapons worked. But when you're facing impossible odds with no good options, sometimes you have to try impossible solutions." The conversation was interrupted by alarms sounding throughout the station. Long-range sensors had detected anomalous readings from the direction of the Andromeda Galaxy. The energy signatures were unlike anything in Federation databases, suggesting that new challenges were approaching. From the depths of intergalactic space, Morrison studied the sensor readings and felt a familiar mixture of concern and determination. Whatever new threat was approaching, humanity and their galactic allies would face it together. They had learned that the universe was far stranger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined, but they had also proven that even impossible challenges could be overcome. The galaxy had been forever changed by humanity's rise from dismissed newcomers to respected leaders. The Federation now understood that diversity of approach was their greatest strength, and that sometimes the most unlikely heroes proved to be exactly what the universe needed. As Morrison issued orders to investigate the new threat, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it with the same stubborn determination that had saved them from the void. "All ships, prepare for dimensional transit," Morrison commanded, as the combined fleet prepared to investigate the mysterious signals from Andromeda. "Looks like the galaxy needs us to do something impossible again." The crew responded with enthusiasm rather than fear, because they had learned that impossible was just another word for challenging, and humans had always excelled at meeting challenges that others considered hopeless.